Patricia Whitmore doesn't enter Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom. She makes an entrance. The 48-year-old heiress glides in with the kind of arrogance usually reserved for red carpets and royal galas. She's wrapped in a floor-length mink coat, yes, despite it being spring in Providence, as if the seasons themselves bend to her schedule. Her Winston diamond necklace flashes under the harsh courtroom lights, each sparkle practically screaming for attention. The Cartier watch on her wrist? It's worth more than what half the people in the room will earn in the next 5 years combined. She clutches her Gucci handbag like a status symbol she's legally required to display, angling the gold G's so everyone gets a good look. And the sunglasses? Still on indoors, because rules? Those are clearly for people who don't think the world revolves around them. Even her perfume arrives early, a thick, extravagant cloud drifting through the doorway a full 3 seconds before she crosses it, announcing her presence the way a trumpet fanfare might announce royalty. Before we even get into today's case, do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to witness is the kind of courtroom moment that deserves a front row seat. Case closed? Not even close. Let's dive deep.
Patricia walks with her chin elevated at an angle that forces her to literally look down her nose at everyone around her. She doesn't acknowledge the bailiff when he nods respectfully. She doesn't acknowledge anyone. Her entire demeanor communicates a single message. You are all beneath my notice. The reason this wealthy woman is standing in Providence Municipal Court should be simple, but Patricia has managed to turn a parking violation into something far more revealing about her character. She's here because she parked in a designated handicap space at Providence City Hall. When confronted by a parking enforcement officer, she didn't apologize or move her vehicle. Instead, she became verbally abusive, dismissive, and refused to move her car for 45 minutes while she attended what she deemed a more important obligation, a charity board meeting inside the building. While Patricia sat in an air-conditioned conference room discussing fundraising strategies, a disabled veteran named Thomas Brennan circled the parking lot 3 times in the rain, unable to find a handicap space because Patricia's Mercedes occupied the only available spot. He ultimately missed his disability services appointment, an appointment that had taken him 3 months to schedule. This isn't even Patricia's first offense. This is her 4th handicap parking violation in 2 years. The previous 3 tickets were quietly handled by her expensive attorneys, reduced to minimal fines, dismissed on technicalities, made to disappear, the way problems disappear when you have enough money and the right connections. What Patricia doesn't know, as she settles into her seat with a dramatic sigh, is that Thomas Brennan is sitting in this courtroom right now. He's in the 3rd row, wearing his Veterans of Foreign Wars jacket, and Judge Caprio has read every single word of his written statement. In exactly 9 minutes, this woman, who has built her entire identity on looking down at other people, will say something so insulting, so breathtakingly arrogant, that it will unite an entire courtroom against her. Before we continue, if you believe that wealth should never exempt someone from basic human decency, subscribe to this channel. Now, let's watch what happens when arrogance meets accountability. The bailiff steps forward and announces in a clear, professional voice, "The State of Rhode Island versus Patricia N. Whitmore." Patricia continues examining her perfectly manicured nails as if she hasn't heard her own name. The bailiff has to repeat himself. "Miss Whitmore, please stand." She looks up slowly, deliberately, making everyone in the courtroom wait for her. When she finally stands, it's with theatrical slowness, as if rising from her chair requires an enormous effort that these common people should appreciate. "Is this really necessary? I have an actual schedule to maintain." Her voice drips with the kind of condescension that comes from a lifetime of never being told no in any way that mattered. Judge Caprio looks up from his papers with the calm, patient expression he's maintained through 4 decades on the bench. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Whitmore." Patricia glances at him briefly. "It's afternoon somewhere, I suppose." The dismissive tone in her voice makes it clear that she considers even basic pleasantries to be beneath her. Judge Caprio begins reading from the file in front of him, his voice steady and professional. "You're charged with parking in a designated handicapped space without proper authorization, verbal harassment of a city official, and obstruction." Patricia's already reaching into her handbag, pulling out an expensive bottle of hand lotion. She begins applying it to her hands while the judge is speaking, the gesture so casually disrespectful that several people in the gallery audibly gasp. "My attorney submitted documentation explaining the situation. I'm sure we can resolve this quickly. I have a spa appointment at 3 and lunch reservations at 4:30. Judge Caprio sets down his pen with deliberate clang. "Mrs. Whitmore, please put away your personal items and give the court your full attention." Patricia doesn't stop applying the lotion. She rubs it into her hands with slow, deliberate movements, making it clear that she's not going to be rushed by anyone, including a judge. "I'm listening." "I can multitask. It's a skill you develop when you actually accomplish things in life." The implication hangs in the air, unspoken but unmistakable. "Unlike you people, I'm important." Judge Caprio's expression doesn't change, but something in the room shifts. The temperature seems to drop several degrees. "Mrs. Whitmore, this is a court of law. Please show the proper respect these proceedings deserve." Patricia finally caps her lotion bottle and drops it back into her handbag with an audible sigh of irritation. "Respect. I show respect to people who have earned it. I chair 3 charitable boards in this city. I sit on the Hospital Foundation. I've personally raised millions of dollars for causes that actually matter. What I don't respect is being dragged into court over a parking space when there are actual criminals walking the streets." The gallery erupts in quiet murmurs of disapproval. Judge Caprio maintains his composure, though his voice takes on a firmer edge. "Mrs. Whitmore, you parked in a space specifically reserved by law for disabled citizens. This isn't a matter of opinion or convenience. It's a matter of following rules that protect vulnerable members of our community." Patricia waves her hand dismissively, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "And I'm sure whoever needed it found another space. The parking lot wasn't exactly full. It's not as if I parked there all day. I had a board meeting that lasted exactly 40 minutes. We were allocating funds for a new pediatric wing at the hospital. 40 minutes. That's hardly a crime worthy of all this drama." Judge Caprio opens another file, and his voice becomes very quiet. "The whoever you refer to has a name. Mr. Thomas Brennan, would you please stand?" An older man rises slowly from his seat in the 3rd row of the gallery. Thomas Brennan is in his late 60s, wearing a Veterans of Foreign Wars jacket with numerous service pins attached to the breast. He walks with significant difficulty, leaning heavily on a cane, and his right leg is clearly prosthetic below the knee. Every step he takes toward the front of the courtroom looks painful. The room falls into complete silence as everyone watches this elderly veteran make his way forward. Patricia glances at him briefly, then looks away as if his presence is somehow offensive to her sensibilities. Thomas Brennan reaches the witness area, and Judge Caprio nods respectfully. "Mr. Brennan, please tell the court what happened on the afternoon of April 16th. Thomas clears his throat, his voice quiet but steady, with the kind of dignity that comes from a lifetime of service. "Your Honor, I'm a Vietnam veteran. I lost my leg in 1971 during my 2nd tour. I had an appointment at City Hall for my disability benefits review at 2 in the afternoon. It's an appointment I'd been waiting 3 months to get
because the system is backlogged and they only have certain days available for veterans in my district." Thomas continues, his words measured and careful. "I arrived at City Hall at 1:45, 15 minutes early, like I always am for important appointments. I circled the parking lot 3 times, looking for the handicap space. There's only one properly marked space in that particular lot. It was occupied by her vehicle." He gestures toward Patricia without looking at her directly. "It was raining that day, not hard, but steady. I waited in my car for 45 minutes, thinking maybe whoever was parked there would come out soon. My leg, it doesn't work well in the rain. The prosthetic gets uncomfortable when it's wet, and the stump swells up. By the time I realized she wasn't coming out anytime soon, my appointment time had passed. I missed it completely. When I called to reschedule, they told me the next available appointment was 3 months away. So now I'm waiting until July for something I was supposed to handle in April." His voice cracks slightly on the last sentence, and he looks down at his cane. Patricia shifts in her seat, looking more annoyed than sympathetic. "And that's unfortunate, truly it is, but I fail to see how that's my responsibility. Parking is first come, first served. I arrived when I arrived. Perhaps if Mr. Brennan had planned better or left earlier, he wouldn't have this problem." The courtroom explodes. People are standing up, shouting at Patricia. The bailiff has to call for order 3 times before the room quiets down enough for proceedings to continue. Judge Caprio's expression has hardened in a way that veteran court observers recognize as extremely dangerous. Thomas Brennan looks directly at Patricia for the first time, his eyes filled with quiet pain. "Ma'am, those spaces aren't first come, first served. They're reserved by law for people with disabilities. People like me who gave parts of themselves
in service to this country." Patricia meets his gaze without flinching, her voice cold and dismissive. "And I appreciate your service, I really do. But laws are written by people who have time to worry about parking spaces. Some of us are busy doing actual work that benefits society. While you were sitting in your car, I was in a meeting allocating $2 million for a new cardiac wing at the hospital. I think we can agree that's slightly more important than your parking convenience." Judge Caprio stands up slowly, something he rarely does during proceedings. "Mrs. Whitmore, before this goes any further, I want you to understand something very clearly. This court does not measure the value of human beings by their charitable donations or their position in society. Mr. Brennan's time and dignity are not less important than your meeting. His needs are not subordinate to your schedule. Do you understand what I'm saying?" Patricia also stands, her face flushing with anger and indignation. "What I understand, Your Honor, is that I'm being persecuted for being successful. I contribute to this city. I build things. I fund things. What I don't do is complain when life is occasionally inconvenient." The tension in the courtroom is thick enough to cut with a knife. Judge Caprio opens his mouth to respond, but Patricia isn't finished. She's worked herself up into righteous indignation now, and the words keep pouring out. Let's be honest about what this really is. Some people contribute to society, and some people take from it. I contribute. I raise millions of dollars every year. I employ people. I serve on boards. And yes, sometimes that means I don't have time to circle parking lots looking for the perfect space. I make judgment calls about priorities. That's what successful people do. We prioritize. And I prioritized saving lives through hospital funding over someone's minor parking convenience. Judge Caprio's voice cuts through Patricia's justification like steel through silk. "Mrs. Whitmore, let me be very clear about something. Your charitable work is commendable. Your fundraising efforts are valuable to this community. But none of that, absolutely none of it, gives you the right to break laws designed to protect disabled citizens. Your wealth does not exempt you from basic human decency. Your donations do not purchase the right to park wherever you please. Your position in society does not erase your contempt for those you consider beneath you." Patricia's face flushes even redder. Now her voice rises to match her anger. "Beneath me? Let's stop dancing around this, Your Honor. Let's be honest about what we're really talking about here. Some people build, some people contribute, some people make things happen, and some people sit around collecting benefits and complaining when life isn't perfectly convenient for them. I'm in the first category. I build hospitals, I fund schools, I create opportunities. What I don't do is whine about parking spaces. Judge Caprio remained standing, his expression unreadable, but his
Voice carrying absolute authority. Mrs. Whitmore, you will show respect for Mr. Brennan and for this court. Your behavior is completely inappropriate, and if you continue down this path, there will be serious consequences. Patricia laughs, an actual laugh that sounds sharp and bitter in the silent courtroom. Consequences. Consequences. You want me to respect this charade, this theater? You sit up there in your robe pretending you're some kind of moral authority, wielding your tiny bit of power over parking tickets and traffic violations. You make what, 6 figures a year? You've probably never written a check that actually changed someone's life. You've never funded a hospital wing or endowed a scholarship or built something that matters. And you're going to stand there and lecture me about respect? The entire courtroom seems to hold its breath. Even Patricia's attorney has his face in his hands, knowing that his client has just crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. Judge Caprio stands perfectly still, his expression completely neutral, waiting to see if Patricia will continue digging her own grave. And she does. It's pathetic. This whole system is pathetic. You're pathetic, sitting up there pretending that finding people for parking violations is somehow noble work. It's not. It's petty bureaucracy dressed up as justice, and I'm done pretending to take it seriously. The words hang in the air like smoke after an explosion. Nobody moves, nobody breathes. The silence is so complete that the hum of the fluorescent light sounds loud in comparison. Patricia stands there with her arms crossed, a defiant smirk on her face, apparently proud of her outburst. Her attorney is frantically whispering to her, trying to get her to sit down and apologize, but she shakes him off. I've wasted enough time on this nonsense. Find me whatever amount makes you feel important. My accountant will cut a check and I'll be on my way. But don't expect me to grovel or pretend that this matters in any real way because it doesn't. You don't matter. This court doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is actual contribution to society, and that's something I do every single day while you sit in judgment of people who actually make a difference. Judge Caprio finally speaks, his voice so quiet that everyone has to lean forward to hear him. Mrs. Whitmore, sit down. Patricia hesitates, suddenly uncertain. I'll stand if I want to stand. This is still a free country. Judge Caprio's voice doesn't rise in volume, but somehow becomes more forceful. Sit down now. Something in his tone, some quality of absolute authority that cannot be argued with, makes Patricia sit. She drops into her chair like a puppet whose strings have been cut. And for the first time since entering the courtroom, she looks genuinely unsure of herself. Judge Caprio remains standing, and when he speaks again, every word is measured and deliberate. In 42 years on this bench, threatened by criminals, I have been cursed at by people with nothing to lose. People facing prison time who lashed out in fear and anger. I have been called every name imaginable by defendants who felt the system had failed them. But I have never in all my decades of service been called pathetic by someone who thinks wealth is a substitute for character. The gallery is completely silent, everyone watching this confrontation with rapt attention. Patricia opens her mouth to respond, but Judge Caprio holds up one hand and she falls silent. You called me pathetic, Mrs. Whitmore. You called this court pathetic. You called the entire justice system pathetic. All because you don't want to accept responsibility for breaking a law designed to help disabled veterans like Mr. Brennan. So let me tell you what I find pathetic.
I find it pathetic that a woman who claims to care about her community doesn't think the laws of that community apply to her. I find it pathetic that someone who sits on hospital boards and charity foundations treats a disabled veteran like an inconvenience. I find it pathetic that you've stood in this courtroom for the past 20 minutes and shown more respect for your hand lotion than for the people around you. Patricia's face has gone from red to pale. The smirk has completely disappeared. Judge Caprio continues, his voice never rising, but somehow filling every corner of the courtroom. And most pathetic of all, Mrs. Whitmore, is that you genuinely believe your charitable donations entitle you to look down on others. You think writing checks makes you superior. You think funding a hospital wing means you don't have to follow the same rules as everyone else. That's not generosity. That's not charity. That's buying the right to feel superior. And it's the saddest thing I've seen in this courtroom in years. Mrs. Whitmore, I am holding you in contempt of court. Patricia jerks as if she's been slapped. On what grounds? You just called a sitting judge pathetic in open court. That constitutes contempt. You can't do that. I have First Amendment rights. Your First Amendment rights do not extend to contempt of court, Mrs. Whitmore. You crossed a line. Now you'll face the consequences. Patricia's attorney finally finds his voice. Your Honor, my client is clearly emotional and not thinking clearly. Perhaps if we could take a brief recess to allow everyone to calm down? Judge Caprio shakes his head. Denied. Your client made her choice. She made it clearly, loudly, and deliberately. She called this court pathetic. She dismissed a disabled veteran's legitimate concerns. And she did all of it with the kind of arrogance that comes from never being held accountable. That ends today.
Let me show you what actual accountability looks like. Judge Caprio sits back down and opens the file in front of him with deliberate slowness. For your fourth violation of parking in a handicapped space, I'm imposing a fine of $5,000. Patricia gasps audibly. $5,000 for a parking space? That's highway robbery! It's your fourth offense, Mrs. Whitmore. The law provides for escalating penalties with repeat violations. This is what happens when you refuse to learn from previous citations. For verbal harassment of Officer Williams, the parking enforcement officer you told worked for you, I'm imposing an additional fine of $2,500. She doesn't work for you. She works for the citizens of this city, enforcing laws that protect all of us. Patricia's attorney stands quickly. Your Honor, these fines are excessive given the nature of the offenses. Counselor, your client has had 3 previous opportunities to learn this lesson. She chose not to. The fines are appropriate, and they stand. Judge Caprio turns to a new page in his file. And for contempt of court, I'm imposing a fine of $10,000 and 48 hours in county jail. Patricia jumps to her feet so fast her chair nearly tips over backward. Jail? You can't send me to jail for a parking ticket. I can, and I am, Mrs. Whitmore. The jail time is for contempt of court, not for the parking violation. You insulted this court and demonstrated flagrant disrespect for the judicial process. This is insane! I have a charity gala on Saturday. Dozens of people are counting on me. You should have thought of that before you called me pathetic. Patricia's voice becomes shrill with panic. This is persecution. You're persecuting me for being successful. I'm holding you accountable for being cruel, Mrs. Whitmore. There's a significant difference. Judge Caprio isn't finished. In addition to your fines and jail time, you're sentenced to 200 hours of community service. This service will be performed at the Providence Veterans Center, where you will assist disabled veterans with daily tasks every Saturday and Sunday, 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon until all 200 hours are completed. The supervisor there will report directly to this court on your attendance and your attitude. Patricia's face has gone from pale to gray. You want me to work at a veterans center? Doing what exactly? Whatever they need, Mrs. Whitmore. Cleaning, serving meals, helping with paperwork, assisting veterans with mobility issues.
Manual labor that might teach you something about humility and service. I can't do manual labor. I have responsibilities. You'll find time, Mrs. Whitmore, because if you miss a single scheduled shift, I'll extend your jail sentence to 30 days. Patricia turns desperately to her attorney. Do something! Stop this! Her attorney stands helplessly. Your Honor, we will, of course, be filing an appeal. That's your right, Counselor. But the sentence stands until and unless a higher court overturns it, which I strongly doubt will happen given the video evidence we have.
Of your client's behavior today. Judge Caprio continues reading from his notes. You'll also complete 40 hours of disability awareness training and 20 hours of ADA compliance courses. You'll write a 2,000-word essay on why handicapped parking spaces matter, and that essay will be published in the Providence Journal. Furthermore, you'll write personal apologies to Mr. Brennan and Officer Williams. These apologies will be reviewed by this court before being delivered, and you'll make a public statement at the next City Council meeting acknowledging your actions and their impact on the community. Patricia has collapsed back into her chair, her entire body shaking. This is too much. This is cruel and unusual punishment. You're trying to destroy my life. No, Mrs. Whitmore. I'm trying to teach you that your life doesn't matter more than anyone else's. Judge Caprio closes the file with finality. One more thing. I'm informed that you obtained a handicapped parking placard 3 years ago through a donation to a medical clinic. That placard has been permanently revoked. If you're caught parking in a handicapped space again, you'll serve 30 days in jail with no possibility of suspension. Do I make myself clear? Patricia can barely speak through her tears. I donated millions to this city, the hospital wing, the library expansion, the arts center. Doesn't any of that count for anything? Judge Caprio's expression softens almost imperceptibly. It counts, Mrs. Whitmore. It counts a great deal. It's why I believe you're capable of being better than you showed yourself to be today. Your donations are admirable. Your behavior is not. The two are not mutually exclusive. You can be generous and kind. You can be successful and humble. You can make a difference without looking down on others. But until you learn that lesson, your wealth is just money. It's not character. Patricia turns toward Thomas Brennan, mascara streaming down her face in dark rivers. Mr. Brennan, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please tell the judge I apologized. Thomas looks at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he speaks quietly. You're not sorry you hurt me, ma'am. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. When you're actually sorry for what you did, instead of sorry about the consequences, then we can talk about forgiveness. Patricia crumples completely, sobbing into her hands. Judge Caprio nods to the bailiff. Mrs. Whitmore will be taken into custody immediately to begin her jail sentence. Her community service will begin the weekend following her release. The courtroom erupts. People are standing, many of them applauding. The sound starts small but builds into something powerful, a wave of approval that fills every corner of the room. Thomas Brennan slowly raises his hand in a salute directed at Judge Caprio. The judge acknowledges it with a small nod, but doesn't smile. There's no satisfaction in his expression, only the quiet resolve of someone who has done what needed to be done. Patricia is led out by 2 bailiffs,
Still crying, still protesting. My husband will fix this. Our attorneys will have this overturned. You'll see, this isn't over. But her voice is hollow now. The arrogance completely drained away, replaced by fear and the dawning realization that, for the first time in her privileged life, money can't make her problems disappear. As the courtroom doors close behind Patricia, Judge Caprio sits quietly for a moment. Then he looks directly at Thomas Brennan. Mr. Brennan, on behalf of this court and this community, I apologize that you had to experience what you experienced. Your service to this country earned you better treatment than you received. I hope this outcome demonstrates that the law does protect those who have sacrificed for us, even when it takes time to enforce that protection." Thomas nods, his eyes wet, but his voice steady. "Thank you, Your Honor. That means more than you know." The gallery slowly begins to disperse, people filing out in small groups, many of them stopping to shake Thomas's hand or thank him for his service. Within the hour, video of Patricia calling Judge Caprio pathetic will be on every news station in Rhode Island. Within 3 hours, it will be trending nationally. By evening, "Wealthy woman calls judge pathetic" will have 30 million views and climbing. Patricia Whitmore walked into court that morning as a respected socialite and charitable donor.
She wouldn't walk out of that courtroom as the woman who arrived. The woman who believed money could bend the world to her will. She would leave as a warning, a reminder of what happens when privilege blinds you to the humanity of the people around you, and of how quickly the illusion of power crumbles when confronted by truth. But if she chooses to learn, if she chooses to listen, her fall won't be her ending. It might be the first honest moment of her life, the beginning of becoming the person she always pretended to be. Because that's what Judge Frank Caprio built his legacy on. Not punishment for punishment's sake, but justice that transforms. Justice that reminds us dignity cannot be bought. Compassion is not optional, and every life in that courtroom deserves to be seen. Before you go, if you believe stories like this matter, if you missed the heart, humanity, and fairness Judge Caprio brought to every case, hit subscribe to Case Closed so we can keep his legacy alive, one story at a time. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today?